Jay, I wonder as part of your coaching process at the end of each season, what do you do to evaluate yourself and to look back at how the year went and things that went well, lessons you learned? I imagine you got all kinds of notebooks. Mm-hmm. What's your process now?
Well, you mentioned one of them right there is I take detailed notes on every day as you work your way through a season. And I go back and I personally look at the things I was thinking at different times. And looking at the reasons why we made certain decisions, those type of things, how we handled certain situations, how we got through adverse moments, those type of things. I think though what happens immediately after your season ends is that you want to make sure that you're wrapping things up with your players the right way and in a timely fashion. So yesterday, obviously, there were some medicals and a team meeting and whatnot. We got through some meetings with some of our younger players who didn't play in the playoffs. And then over the next couple of days, you meet with players and you ask good questions, and most importantly, you listen. I felt ready for this opportunity in February based on my preparation through 17 years in professional hockey. I felt ready heading into the playoffs because I've been part of a lot of playoff games in different fashions or different job titles, but it wasn't my first time in this league at getting ready for a playoff series. But I think when you work your way through, you learn different lessons along the way. And that first series versus LA, it's not like it all went smooth and it was just smooth sailing. There were adverse times. We learned a lot about each other in that series. I thought our habits held up under pressure. We worked our way into the second round series versus a heavily favored Calgary Flames team, the number one team in our division. We were able to dispatch them in timely fashion. And learned a lot of lessons about our group during that series. And then obviously headed into the third round of the playoffs, and it didn't go our way. And I think you can learn as much and maybe even more lessons when you don't achieve what you want. And that's the process that we're filtering right now. We're learning and processing those lessons.
What's going to be the biggest advantage as a coach for you heading into training camp next year?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to get to that question. I want to start out by saying one of the advantages of coming up the way Dave and I did at that time was there wasn't, we got thrown right into the fire. And, I think it was 5 games in 7 nights, 7 and 9, travel all over. The team was out of the playoff picture. We were going to play a murderer's row of Tampa, Florida, and Carolina on one of the road trips and all that kind of stuff. So what we did at that time, we just tried to use our eyes, our instincts. We weren't beholden to any biases on players or anything like that. We just came in and tried to use the benefit of our experience in order to make the best decisions possible. It didn't mean we made every right decision, but we weren't caught up in all the stuff around the team at that time. We just tried to push our team forward a little bit each day. So that, I think, even though it wasn't ideal or typical or normal for people in their first opportunity, I didn't see it as a bad thing at the time. I have shared experience with a lot of the players in our organization. It's not about seeing them for three preseason games and making an immediate judgment based on just only on what you see. You have a shared experience. I think, you mentioned Ryan McLeod. One of the things when we first came up, Dave and I, we knew that Ryan McLeod was an elite penalty killer in the American Hockey League. At the time, the penalty kill was taking on a little bit of water from December 1st till February 10th or 11th or whatever it was, based on our knowledge of what he could do at that level, that informed some of the decisions that we made in terms of his elevation of penalty kill ice time. Same thing with Kyler Yamamoto in that situation. So that's an example of how your experience with that player allows you to make some informed decisions. For me, with those players, I not only have shared experience with them, but they have shared experience with me. And so they're very clear on what expectations are. They understand that I value being tough-minded on standards of performance. And I think they could attest that I have a keen understanding of how people operate. And that's a core tenet of my coaching philosophy. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a blend of both.
When you look at guys, you look at Puljujärvi, do you see him as somebody that can kill penalties in the future? And how, if a guy's never got to do it, it's hard to just throw him in, right? So seasons for, what would you need to see for a guy like that to maybe be used on your penalty kill?
Well, potentially. So I think it's important to be open-minded. And I think the time for experimentation is in training camp, is in preseason, is early in the season. So if your question is about penalty kill ice time, when Dave and I came up, as I said, I referenced going back to December the 1st, the penalty kill was taking on water. I think it was in the 60s, something along those lines during that time frame. And we slowly chipped away. And one of the ways we did that was to go to what we knew as coaches. And eventually the penalty kill became a source of strength for our team. I think that is a potential area for increased ice time. I also think it's important that players in your lineup find a way, in order to garner more ice time, you got to play on one of the special teams. So it is a potential. Now, there's two parts to that equation. It's nice to have a plan, but then you got to use the real-time information that players give you and judge if the plan's working or not. So you got to be light on your feet in terms of reacting to what you're seeing as well.
How beneficial will be that increased practice time, especially in the start of the season, so that you can, down the road, maybe change some things out, not have to necessarily solely rely on video to make adjustments for the series?
Yeah, that's a very good question too, because if I look at one of the challenges that we faced as a team from February 11th on was the schedule and lack of practice time to be able to implement some things you might want to implement. And that's why, I would walk in here and you guys would roll your eyes when I would say, oh, we're concentrating on one thing or the lead domino and this is what we're doing and this is what, it's because it's hard in that situation to give the buckshot theory of this, and this. You have to be very focused and specific in what you wanted to achieve, understanding the schedule, understanding the lack of practice time. I think training camps are where you begin to lay a foundation. It's where you're able to make system adjustments. It's where you're able to set yourselves up to compete, because you're able to compete with each other in training camp so that you can compete for each other as the season goes on.